You ever wonder how economists can tell if an entire country's economy is doing well or not so well? Well, they have this amazing tool, One Master Graph, that's kind of like an EKG for the economy. It shows its health, its sickness, and its potential. Today, we're diving into that tool, the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to build this master graph from the ground up. Then we'll use it to diagnose the big problems, recessions and inflation. We'll even look at the absolute nightmare scenario called stagflation. And finally, we'll see how the pros try to step in, shift these curves around, and get everything back in balance. All right, let's get right into it. We're going to build the single most powerful and important graph in all of macroeconomics, piece by piece. I mean, it sounds kind of impossible, right? How on earth do you take trillions of dollars, millions of jobs, and countless businesses and put them all into one single picture? Well, that's exactly what the AD/AS model lets us do. Okay, so every graph starts with its axes. For this one, the vertical axis shows the overall price level. Think of it as the average price of absolutely everything in the economy. And on the horizontal axis, we've got real GDP. That's the total amount of stuff, all the goods and services that the country is producing. Now for our first line. It's called the long run aggregate supply, or LRAS, and it's just a straight vertical line. So why vertical? Because in the long run, what an economy can produce has nothing to do with prices. It's all about the real stuff, your technology, your resources, your workers. This line basically represents the economy's top speed, its full potential. Next up, we have aggregate demand, or AD. Now, this curve slopes downward, and it's pretty intuitive. It represents the total spending from everyone, consumers, businesses, the government, you name it. It makes sense, right? When the overall price level is lower, our money goes further, so we all tend to buy more stuff. And the last piece of our puzzle is the short-run aggregate supply, or SRAS. This one slopes upward. Why? Well, in the short run, a lot of business costs are sticky, especially wages. They don't change right away. So imagine you're a business owner. If the prices you sell your products for go up, but you're still paying your workers the same amount, hey, your profits just got bigger. That's a huge incentive to ramp up production. And here it is. When all three of these curves cross at the very same point, we've hit the jackpot. This is called full employment equilibrium. The economy is producing at its maximum sustainable level, and prices are stable. This is our picture of a perfectly healthy economy. But let's be real, economies are hardly ever perfectly healthy. Things go wrong. So now that we know what health looks like, let's use our new tool to diagnose some common economic illnesses. And really, there are two big problems we're going to see. On one side, you have a recessionary gap. That's when the economy is sluggish, underperforming, and not living up to its potential. And on the other side, you have an inflationary gap. That's the opposite problem. The economy is running way too hot, kind of like an engine in the red. So, let's start with that first one, the recessionary gap. Let's say something bad happens, maybe a global pandemic or a big drop in consumer confidence. People just stop spending as much. So, what does this actually feel like in the real world? Well, the symptoms are pretty painful. Businesses aren't selling as much, so they have to lay people off. That means high unemployment. The country's total output, its GDP, goes down. And you might even see prices stop rising, or in some cases, even start to fall. On our graph, all that reduced spending shows up as the aggregate demand curve shifting over to the left. See that? The new spot where AD and SRAS cross is now way below our full potential. And that distance, that space between where the economy is and where it could be, that is the recessionary gap. Okay, now let's flip the script. What about the opposite problem? What happens when the economy is overheating? That's what we call an inflationary gap. The symptoms here can actually feel pretty good at first. I mean, who doesn't like very low unemployment? The economy is absolutely booming. But here's the catch. It's not sustainable. Businesses are pushing their workers and machines past their limits, and all that crazy demand is causing prices to shoot up. That's high inflation. Graphically, it's a perfect mirror image of a recession. Some huge surge in spending, maybe everyone suddenly feels super optimistic about the future, shifts the aggregate demand curve to the right. Now, our new short-run equilibrium is pushed beyond our long-run potential, and that's what creates that unsustainable inflationary gap. So we've got recessions and we've got overheating, but there is a third really awful situation that actually combines the worst parts of both. Let's talk about the stagflation nightmare. Stagflation is this horrible, toxic mix. You get a stagnant economy, which means high unemployment and low growth, but at the same time, you get high inflation. It's a total nightmare for policymakers because the usual medicine for unemployment makes inflation worse, and the medicine for inflation makes unemployment worse. You're stuck. And this isn't caused by a change in spending. It's caused by a negative supply shock. The classic example is a sudden spike in oil prices. Suddenly, it costs more for almost every business to produce and transport their goods. This shifts the short-run aggregate supply curve to the left, and the result is brutal. You get less output, higher unemployment, and higher prices, all at once. All right, so our economic EKG has helped us find the problem. Now for the most important part. How do we fix it? How do we nudge the economy back to that healthy, full employment sweet spot? Well, there's a pretty standard playbook. Step 1, figure out which gap you have. Step 2, choose your weapon. Are you going to use fiscal policy? That's the government, or monetary policy from the central bank. Step 3, use that tool to shift aggregate demand. And step 4, get back to full employment. It's the whole game. So, if you're in a recession, the prescription is expansionary policy. The government can spend more or cut taxes. The central bank can lower interest rates. The goal of all of this is to encourage people and businesses to spend more, which shifts that aggregate demand curve back to the right and closes the gap. And what if the economy's overheating? You do the exact opposite. To fight inflation, you use contractionary policy to cool things down. So the government might cut spending or raise taxes. The central bank will raise interest rates. This is all designed to reduce spending, shift aggregate demand back to the left, and bring the economy back down to a sustainable level. You know, this model is an incredibly powerful way to think about the economy. It lets us see the problems and it gives us a clear idea of the solutions. But it leaves us with one huge, lingering question. Knowing what lever to pull is one thing. But in the real world, with all its messiness and politics, can policymakers really control exactly where these curves land? That's the billion-dollar question that they grapple with every single day.